Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Yvonne Pre-Show. I'm your host, Yvonne Pre, your little ray of darkness. And today we have a really awesome Aussie guest. I haven't had one for a while. I'm so glad to have one on. We're going to be talking to one of the stars and co-writers of Australian's comedy. Oh my God, it's so funny. You need to watch it, guys. The Emu War. We're talking to Dane Simpson today. Mate, how are you?
Hey, yeah, good. How are you?
Really good. Finally, nice to get to speak to you.
Yeah, yeah,
Just
absolutely.
once. Yeah.
What's so you've had international guests?
I've had some international ones, yeah. I spoke to a lady who directed a film that Luke Cook was in. I
Yep,
spoke to a friend of mine from America, Dave Reed. I spoke to him. Yeah,
yep, yep.
it's Corin Nemec I spoke to, Drew Marvick, he does a lot of like B grade homages to 80s movies. So yeah,
That's fantastic.
I needed to come
Oh,
back to some Aussie
nice.
guys.
Yeah. Some absolute Z grade Aussie movie.
Z grade, you had an entire nation fall in love with you and your dad with The Amazing Race. You're not Z grade,
That's
mate.
yeah, that was heaps of fun. Taking dad around the world. What a stupid idea that was, but it was yeah, that worked out great.
Yeah. Oh no, seriously, like I need to meet your dad. I think
Yeah,
he'd be freaking laugh right to hang out with.
everyone says this. Also, like after we finished filming The Amazing Race, we left on a Friday, like as in we got out of the show, and then I was as soon as we got out, I talked to the producers and I'm like, when can I go home? And they said Sunday it was looking like, and I was like, well, is there no flights leaving back to Australia tomorrow? And she said, actually, the crew want to hang out with your dad tomorrow, if that's okay. And I'm like, that's insulting. I don't know how to take. I'm the guy. That's my dad. But what?
Like I literally get on a stage for a living to make people laugh, and you pick my dad. You're getting me for free, and you're doing
It's
that.
so funny. But yeah, that's he's just that kind of character. People just love him. They're just so like drawn to him. He's the yeah, the Pied Piper of mucking up, and it's fantastic.
Okay, but this film, Emu War, this was.
Yeah.
Are we or enough time in for me to say batshit crazy? You can't swear in the first 30 seconds, so we're good for right now. I know that people talk about the Emu War. People think it was more like dramatic than it actually was. It was just that we were
Yeah.
overrun with emus, and if it's funny to say we lost a war against them.
Yeah.
I think it's so Australian to say we lost a war against a bird. But out of all the things, why was this the thing that you guys wanted to write about?
It was absolutely so. It was really the love child, I suppose, of Jonathan Schuster, who's a really good mate of mine. But I think like one of the first times that I sort of even met him, or the first times that we sort of interacted, and this is probably going back maybe 10 years ago, I've seen him in a pub and he was talking about the Emu War, and I'd never heard of it before, and he was explaining it to me. And then he said, I'm going to make a movie about it one day, which was it sounded lunatic. Like it sounded so crazy because it is such a weird story. Like for the people who don't know, there was a huge population of emus in Western Australia. The weaponry that we had at the time, I think, so we're going back to 1933 around there, wasn't good enough to. I don't think it really penetrated the skin of the emu. It's fairly thick skin,
Mm.
so they were looking at getting military grade weaponry to fight or to kill the emus realistically. But you can't just go and ask the army for their guns. You have to go through the courts, and then the Major Meredith, who's a real character, went through the courts and through the system and said, "We want the military grade stuff." Technically, I think at that time Australia had to declare war against the emus in order to use their stuff, and then they took the weaponry over, set it all up, and it was one of those guns that you like. I suppose like a Gatling gun is what I can imagine, but it had to be stood in a stand, and the emus just didn't go near the weaponry. That's just makes sense. Like they didn't play by war rules. They didn't like need to take over land or anything. They just stayed away from the guns. Um, they were meant to be killing tens of thousands of emus. They ended up on paper killing like 200. Um, even that I think is a little bit like embellished. So,
Yeah.
which is so funny. And then obviously it was taking too long. They were even trying to strap the weaponry to like vehicles so that they could drive around and shoot them. And yeah, the emus are fast, so they just didn't. They couldn't get them. They just couldn't kill the emus. So then they had to withdraw from the war and take their weaponry with them. And then so technically the emus won the war. And that's such a weird story. It's so crazy. It seems far-fetched. It seems not true, but that happened in Australian history. And to have that as a basis of an idea for Jonathan to sort of like go, I want to make this movie, and I was like, yeah, that sounds cool. And then years later to be working on it with him, and for him to like, we put a group of writers together, and we were coming up with these concepts of a movie. It's insane. I've never worked on a movie before. We've written scripts and stuff, but never of this sort of magnitude, should I say? Because as much of a silly movie it is, it's a movie nevertheless. So
Yeah.
it's yeah, it's crazy. What a cool, and it had a theater release and all that type of stuff. So that's insane.
But you also had like six writers on this. How did that
Mm.
process go? Was that like too many chefs in the kitchen at some points or anything?
I think it's either I don't know how you're going to look at the movie. For the people who have watched it, it is so it's a spoof. We have emus walking around with M16s is how we want to tell the story. The emus have their own platoon. There's a queen emu. They are quite conniving, and they come after the Australian soldiers. There's almost like a Gallipoli scene at the start of the movie, which is so crazy that we would shoot. So when you got so many writers, somebody comes up with an idea, and I think it is comedians. Like comedians are like, to be funny. And then they'll say their idea, and then somebody goes, what would be even stupider? And then they'll put their idea. And if you've got six comics trying to be as stupid as possible, I think that's where you end up with the dumbest jokes in the world. I remember as we were sort of because it was happening over 2019, 2020 happened. So we've had like the COVID restrictions and stuff, and living away. I live in Wagga Wagga, country New South Wales. A lot of the writers living in Melbourne, and talking about it over Zoom. I remember us going, "That's too silly. Let's bring it back a little bit." And then when we were filming, we filmed some stuff, and then we went, we did come up with a good idea. That was a bit silly. Let's film that as well. And when I watched the movie after the edit, it was all of the stupidest things that we could possibly think of ended up making the movie. So that's funny to me. And also like overboard. It's over the top. It's stupid. Um, Anybody that's watching it to try and get a historical accuracy account of what happened is fishing in the wrong pond. It is not going to happen. Um, yeah, it's just these really dumb gags and sketches. It originally was meant to be a web series. Did you know this?
No.
No. Yeah. So we wrote a web series originally because we got the funding from Screen Australia, and it was meant to be so 6 or 7 part, 10-minute episodes. So for anybody who's watched it already, so you would know it's just over an hour, so 70, I think 70 minutes, 74 minutes. Yeah, it was meant to be. They were episodes, 10-minute episodes, and you can sort of see the screen go black during the movie, and that would realistically be where that was meant to end.
Yeah.
And then you could watch them on YouTube or wherever the platform that we were going to put them on. And then, yeah, when in the editing room, it ended up becoming a movie. I think we originally, when we wanted to write it, we wanted to write a movie, but Screen Australia, were against that, and they gave us some funding to do a web series more so than a movie. But it evolved and it de-evolved maybe. But it just became a movie in the end. So and like to talk about the funding as well, which I Schuster Jonathan does he done a really funny joke at one of the premieres, but it's a true story. Is Screen Australia gave us so we shot the entire thing on $175,000, which is a grant from Screen Australia. And to put that into perspective, at the time that we got the grant, it was 2019. Um, Scott Morrison was shaking hands of people that were affected by the bushfire tragedies,
Mm-hmm.
and they paid an empathy coach $190,000 to tell ScoMo to stop shaking hands of people that were in a disaster, and that's the kind of we got paid less to film an entire movie. And I think that that's so funny. Because we got the funding at the exact same time. So, yeah, we we were we made this on an oily rag, and it's so crazy. And yeah, I think you can tell, but I think the thing is that we lean into it. So, not only can you tell, but you can enjoy that that's what we did.
Yeah. Yeah, I
Yeah.
actually didn't know that about ScoMo, but I'm actually thinking that would actually make kind of sense that they would do that with him. It's just no one wanted to shake his hand, but he's like forcing
Yeah.
him, like, mate, just let them go, kind of
Stop.
thing.
Stop,
They're,
dude. What
they're
are
in
you
a
doing?
town manned by five, or no, two fire trucks, where a house where I live would get have like five respond to it.
Yeah.
Just come on, mate. It was ridiculous.
I I don't even reckon Chris Hemsworth would get a handshake out of them,
Oh
let
yeah,
alone somebody not as popular as. I don't think he was well liked at the time because it was obviously that thing where he's in Hawaii and he just got back. So it was. How do you not know it? But what a weird situation.
mm-hmm.
Um, to be doing, I think that deserves its own movie. Now that we're saying it out loud.
Oh, I think so. I actually found out about ScoMo that he's that disliked by people he went to school with. There's actually petitions they put out to ban him from attending alumni events because he was that much of an embarrassment.
That's pretty funny. I wonder if there's anything like that about me at my high school. Because I certainly wouldn't be like me going back to high school and they're like, oh, what should we do? When you muck up in school, that makes a good story, and you could become a comedian later and tell those stories. That's that probably wouldn't go down very well at a high school. Uh,
Now you have that. Me, I remember going all the way from year seven to year 10. Everyone slowly got kicked out of class, and it came to the last 2 weeks of school, and me and my friend didn't get kicked out. I'm like, oh, we're gonna make it to the end of year 10. She got kicked out last week. I'm like, you can't make me being the only person now. I feel like a nerd. Don't do that to me. Yeah.
what? Oh, were you a nerd? Did you
I wasn't
like?
a nerd. I just felt like a goody two shoes because I never got kicked out of class.
That's great.
Nah,
That's
just the moment it happened, I was like, oh, fuck, damn, kind of thing.
yeah, yeah. The only one. You're the
Only
Highlander.
one. I'm the Highlander,
That's
yes. There can only be one. So when it comes to certain things in this film,
yeah,
when it comes to the Queen, who was
yeah.
responsible for that? Because
Uh,
I
y-
needed therapy.
what's really funny? So, yeah, again, so we are filming it in drips and drabs because of lockdowns and whatnot, and especially this being filmed in Victoria, and Melbourne going into so many lockdowns. Like the most lockdown city in the world. I ended up heading down to Melbourne, and I got to see the Queen Emu at the end, so in its prime. And I would just remember getting on set and Jonathan Schuster um, just coming up to me, just going, "You are gonna lose your mind when you see the Queen Emu." Um, and I'm like, "That's perfect." And then yeah, and I did. It what a crazy um visual just in life, like just in real life, because it's a puppet. So, what a crazy, crazy thing to see perched up in all its glory with massive emu breasts. Um, a little side note here. So, Ben Russell plays Emu Boy, in the movie, and I don't want to give too much away, but Emu Boy, um, drinks from the emu's bosom.
Mhm.
And Ben Russell in real life is lactose intolerant. And it was Schuster's job to buy the milk. And then Ben on set was like drinking and then turned and just said, this tastes like full cream milk. And Schuster was like, yeah. And he's like, dude, I can't have full cream. I need like, I'm lactose intolerant. And then we just all just shook, shrugged. Um, so you'll see a lot of milk spillage, I suppose, during the movie, and that's purely, yeah, Ben's lactose intolerant, so he can't have any of the milk that's actually in that. And then afterwards, and this is sort of a sad story, I suppose, but cleaning the emu, it because it's milk, it's spoiled.
Mm.
And yeah, so then it started to smell. So realistically, the only parts left of the queen emu in real life is the head. The head is being
Oh,
um yeah, salvaged, which is pretty cool. So you can still get a photo and that type of thing with the head of the emu, but the rest of it is a bit smelly. So I think it might have made its way to the trash.
did this have a bit of inspiration from Star Wars and Luke Skywalker drinking that blue milk and stuff like that?
Damn it! Like that would have been so much funnier. It should have been like a colored milk. Um, it's one of those things too. Like in bringing up Star Wars is like you hear that George Lucas just wanted to edit and says that he could have edited Star Wars again for another year, and create more and more and just keep watching it and just changing and changing. And I felt that way about it as well. Like, there was so much, when I watched it, I was like, oh, we change this gag, change that gag, change that gag. And I think in the end, you just got to release it and then
Yeah.
just go, yeah, that's it. That's the movie. That's what we've come up with. And I suppose being a stand-up comic, the same goes for my shows. Like sometimes I've got a special out, and when we're filming the special, I'm like, I want to change that. I want to change that. I want to change. And then sometimes you just got to go. Here's a deadline. Get that out. And yeah, that's heartbreaking in a sense, but it's also like somewhat freeing, I suppose. Like
Yeah.
somewhat, it's done now.
Yeah.
Um, yeah.
Yeah.
It,
Because I was,
I,
go on, sorry. I cut you off.
yeah, no, yeah. I just think watching it back, sometimes you just keep going. Oh, I wish I changed that. I wish I changed it. And yeah, nah, it's done. It's done.
Because I was like, let's say, like, as a comedian, you must like watch your routines back or even listen to them to go, like, actually, maybe scratch that joke. I'll put this one in instead, tighten this up. You must be doing that quite a lot.
Absolutely. And with the amount that Australian comedians have to churn through, so we do a show like pretty much every year, if not every 2 years. Whereas you've got people in America, in the UK, because they've got such a dense population, and they can write a show and then tour that for like a whole year. They could tour it and almost not even leave like the state or even just be in the one sort of area, and then the following year, and then the following year, and they particularly in America, they can sit on the same show over a 10-year period,
Mm.
um, that hour show. And whereas in Australia, we just don't have the population for it. So we do like Perth, Adelaide, Melbourne, Brisbane, Sydney, and we're pretty much done. Like that's almost that show written, and then you've got to write a new show.
Yeah.
So um, coming up with something good and having it done, and then getting it out there, and then repurposing. I think fixing those jokes as quickly as you possibly can, and then having that show, and then the following year you're almost working on new jokes. So
Mm.
it's yeah, what a crazy sort of churn. That's why I really love Australian comics because I feel like when they are doing sets and headline spots and stuff, you're getting probably 3 hours worth of material all condensed into this 20-minute headline spot or whatever they're doing. They're very good at what they do. Whereas yeah, and the same goes the UK comics and stuff. They've refined over 10 years, so they'll have like this killer 20-minute set. But yeah, I love the material that Australians come up with. We're always moving a little bit faster pace.
Mm.
Yeah,
Yeah, because I quite like UK comics as well. Like I love Danny Boy. He's always
yeah,
a big favorite of mine. And I watched one of
absolutely.
the comedy routines he did here, and then I think he did it in America, like the exact same one, but just how much it changed because in Australia you can swear, you can do whatever, and you can tell he was just so unsure of the American audience with certain things. But
Yeah,
is it? It's you've been over to the UK and done some routines over there. Do you find
yeah.
it's a bit more free with some things here than you do over there because you're worried if it doesn't translate correctly or something like that?
Yeah, it's a bit crazy. I love doing Edinburgh. That was really really cool. But yeah, there is some changes. I talk about like texters,
Mm-hmm.
um, which is classic Australian. I think it was a branding back in the 80s, and I didn't know that. I just thought that we all knew what texters were.
Mm.
And then in the UK, yeah, somebody who'd been to Australia told me, "Oh, the people here don't know what a texture is. While you do your joke, that's." And I was wondering why I didn't get like a laugh with it because I knew that bit always gets a laugh. Um, and then yeah, and then I thought Sharpie would have been the best bet because you hear that in a lot of movies, and it's an American term, and I don't feel like the Scots enjoyed an Australian using an American term, and then we figured out felt tip was what the UK people want to hear. They want to hear. I think that's what they call it in the UK. So it's little things like that that I just find and change about gags. Concepts about jokes and stuff is fairly similar and fairly the same. You know, like the England were quite horrible to the Scots and that type of stuff. So I think the Aboriginality that I sort of talk about in my shows, the Scots almost were relating to it, which is such a weird concept, but that's fun. Yeah, I'd love to go to the UK. I was in India, and touring around shows. That's another world altogether, which is crazy. I talk about going fishing, and the Indian people didn't like that because I think it's a class system thing.
Oh yeah.
And if I was, why would I go fishing when I should pay someone to go fishing for me? It's rude in their culture to have money and not spend it on somebody.
Hmm.
Um, yeah, it's somebody should wash your car. If you own a car, you should pay somebody to wash your car.
Oh.
It's that trickle down economy, but in real life actually working. Yeah, it's a weird concept. So yeah, I love traveling around, trying to figure out how jokes work. Um, in the Emu War in particular, I feel like we just went full balls to the wall Aussie.
Mm-hmm.
It's all Australian jokes. We sneak in like there's Ned Kelly's in there, the Jolly Swagman is in there.
Mm-hmm.
Anything Australian culture that we could. Burke and Wills makes an appearance. Harold Holt,
Mm-hmm.
who I feel like that's a very Australian joke.
Very.
Um, that yeah, our prime minister went for a swim one day and just went missing, and no one even batted an eyelid. If anything, it's the staple joke that it's crazy in memory of this prime minister. Somebody named a swimming pool after him,
I was about to
and
mention
that's
that.
yeah, that's what a weird
Australian.
what a weird dude. Like that's so stupid. Love that. Love that. It's so Australian.
Oh, it is very Australian. And also doing like the bush tucker looking for food and there's like a microwave. Here's your food.
That's fun. That was so much fun. And you know what? I love that people enjoy that scene because it was one of my favorites to film. Me and Goxie just having a ball and again, yeah, sending Schuster off to the shop. And he's specifically asking me what foods that he's going to be buying or whatever. And, yeah, and just coming up with these gags and these ideas. Um, Being out in the bush, we were in Axedale when we were filming that. Yeah, that was fun. It was so much fun, and it comes across
It
in
does.
the scene, so that's cool.
What would have been the most outrageous thing that you managed to add to this script?
Oh, it is an outrageous film. What did I loved? Um, I love the so coming. I did the fish and chips scene when we were like fishing into the river, um, and then just pulling up a basket. Uh, some of the stuff, I don't know. It's so crazy because the film is nutbags. It's got insane scenes in
Mm.
it, and really raunchy stuff too. Like the scene. So there's a scene where everybody's having sex in the jail, and what it's crazy. Is like Ben Knight is obviously an incredible actor,
Mm.
but Ben Knight is in this movie in that scene. A couple of months ago, he was in The Fall Guy, with with what's his name? The
um, Ryan Gosling.
Ryan Gosling. So he's punching Ryan Gosling on the Sydney Harbour Bridge in the back of a whatever that is, like a little truck thing, and they're fighting. They're physically in a fight, and that's so crazy that's like what one of the biggest blockbusters of the year.
Mm.
And then a couple of months later, he's just in our silly little movie, having sex, and so he rocked up to set, and I wasn't there this day because I wasn't allowed into Melbourne, and they were in a shed and there was meant to be so much different scenes. So Ben's such a huge dude, and he's just ripped. He's so muscly.
Mm.
And the when we were writing it, they were coming up with ideas that Ben would just hold people in the air because he's so strong, even upside down or in weird like world in different moves. But Ben had his gallstone out the 6 weeks before and couldn't lift anything more than like 5 kilos.
Mm.
Um, and so they scrapped all of the ideas of that and just they did everything on the ground instead. But they had some heat lamps and all that stuff. It causes the steam to come around, and they everybody's covered in oil. It's such a like to create that sort of sexy, steamy.
Mm.
And then after they finished filming, Damien Callanan asked like the staff, "Oh yeah, cool, we're finished. Who's got the towels?" And that was, I think, somebody just forgot to bring towels. And so we've got Ben Knight and Damien like sitting in their cars, covered in like vegetable oil, just driving home, ruining their cars. I'm assuming the seats of the cars, because somebody just forgot to bring towels that day. I suppose that speaks to the budget of the movie, but also like just the silliness
Mm.
that we all went through to film these sort of scenes and stuff. Yeah, I can't stress enough how dumb and fun it was to film. It's just as a family, we were all, getting around together at night and it felt like camp,
Mhm.
felt like school camp, and yeah, we're just having spaghetti at night and then waking up first crack of dawn and going out, getting dressed and filming these ridiculous scenes.
I think it's something we need to take some more chances with in Australia. Just something a bit more silly, just a bit more genre based, just something stupid, just something different.
Yeah, I feel like that's why this has sort of found a home, particularly in people's hearts. It's different. It's fun. I don't know whether I don't know if it's really clever or really dumb. It feels like a little mixture of both at some points. Um, and then yeah, and I know that there's some people out there that are going to go, you know what, I'd rather watch a movie that makes sense. Um, or something that sort of this leads to that, that leads to that. But this really is just jumps around everywhere. It breaks the rules of some filmmaking sort of stuff, but it's a little bit refreshing. I feel like it's a little bit what's going to happen next. I don't really know because it's a dice roll of a bit of a movie. So that's fun. I feel like it's cool and it's short enough for it to not get old and boring. I think sometimes movies you're in the cinemas and you're just busting for a pee and you're like a quarter of the way through.
Yeah.
And yeah, whereas this in out, I don't even reckon you'll finish your drink and popcorn. It's fun.
Because I remember ages ago they were thinking about bringing back like intermissions for films, and
Yeah,
I can
oh,
understand that because they do it at
yeah,
the Astor here. If they play like the Blues Brothers, there'll be intermission. And I
great.
remember I was watching Les Mis, and there was no intermission. And when we went to the next scene, everyone in the cinema was gone, "Oh, there's more! God, you can't let us down."
Yeah,
It's too much.
absolutely.
Oh, it was way too much.
Yeah, it's exactly that. I love the length of this. Everybody that I tell, yeah, just watch it. It's just a bit over 70 minutes. It's an hour and 10 minutes or whatever it is. Everybody goes, great, great. I can watch it and have a bit of fun and then get back to life.
Yeah,
So
just
it's cool.
something short, punchy, just a bit silly. You
Yeah.
just I like those movies like something like Burn After Reading. When you're done, you're like, what the fuck did I just watch? What was that? What did I learn from this? Absolutely nothing, kind of thing. It just absolute fun.
Yeah, and I think it's meant to be done with someone. Have a chat to somebody about like your favorite jokes and stuff after the show because that's what it's designed to do. It's not meant to be just living in your own head and trying to work out. You'll have weird dreams after watching it if that's how you watch it. You need to actually have a bit of a debrief and tell people, oh, that was a bit of fun.
Yeah,
I liked this. I didn't understand that, and then somebody will maybe explain a concept or an idea or whatever. But
I think
yeah,
this is definitely going to get like cult status, like cult following from this. Like, have you ever seen Houseboat Horror? Or even heard of
no,
it?
I
This,
have heard of it.
this was supposed to be a legitimate horror movie, straight to video. It had Alan Dale in it, but then it also
Yeah.
had like Animal from Hey Hey, had a bunch of people in it. And even though it's like so badly done, it is one of my absolute favorites. Like it's so quotable, so amazing. I'm trying to get a bunch of people together to actually talk about it on here because I'm like, I can't be the only person watching this. I got
Yeah.
someone was like, "Oh, I won't watch it because I don't have to pay for it." It went on Broly at one point. I'm like, "You got no excuse. You're watching.
Yeah. Right.
Absolutely no excuse. Watch it."
I loved so there's some movies that like Civic Video back in the day used to do $10, 10 movies or whatever it was.
Yep.
And I got really hooked on watching movies that had sequels. Leprechaun.
Yes.
And I'd watched all of the Leprechauns and like love them. They're so dumb. And Critters.
Yes.
And what like Wishmaster?
Yep.
These really ridiculous movies, and then they were releasing a sequel 15 years later, and it would hurt my soul because I'd have to watch this dumb movie. I have to put aside an hour and a half and it never let me down. It was always ridiculous and fun, and yeah, I love that. Houseboat Horrors. Is
Houseboat
that
Horror.
it?
Yeah, Houseboat Horror.
Great.
You can get it on like Blu-ray, DVD, but you can also I think it's on Shutter at the moment.
Nice.
Yeah, but yeah, no, so much fun. It's so stupid, so quotable. I love it. I love it to bits. There's something that they do here in Melbourne. They do it at the Astor and sometimes at Cinema Nova. called Cinema Fiasco. So they'll play
Yeah,
like a bad movie and they'll have two hosts that do the commentary. I've been to it
yeah,
3 times, and each
brilliant.
time there has been more and more people from the movie that were in it. So the first time you had the killer, and then the second time you had someone who, I'll give it away, she dies from a horseshoe to the face. And
And it's not on a horse, I'm assuming.
no, it's just straight into the face. That there was that, and then there was the guy who rented out the houseboats. He was there, and one of the actors, the woman who died from horseshoe to the face, she was like, "Oh, there was a speedboat, and we sank it, so no one got paid because they had to pay for the speedboat."
Oh, that's funny. That's so funny.
There's so many good stories. It's so freaking so good.
That's great. It's yeah, I love those real stories too, like and even it's in famous movies. Like we all know the Halloween mask is
William Shatner.
William Shatner.
Mm.
And I just think it's so funny because he didn't know that that was going to be a huge franchise. He didn't know at the time. They were just filming this, and then John's just sent someone down to the shop to get a scary mask. And he's like, "Oh, this is all they've got. They've just got the Star Trek guy." And he's like, "Well, just paint it white, put it on, and just hope for the best." That's now iconic.
Yeah.
It's these like that's fun to know that that's like a famous movie, but these little crazy little B grade movies
Mm.
that it's fun shit. It's great. It's really cool to get into.
So many things start from the B grade movies. Like all of our, villains from horror, they were all independent films. Like,
Yep.
Friday the 13th, independent. When it came to A Nightmare on Elm Street, New Line Cinema had pretty much just started and they were worried they weren't going to survive. Now they have Lord of the Rings. You know what I
Yeah.
mean?
Wow. Yeah.
And
We've got Freddie to thank for Lord of the Rings.
that's my man. I love Freddie. Freddie's the
Yeah, yeah.
best.
But that's so insane that Freddy Krueger and Legolas are somewhat related in
Yeah,
in some context. Like
yeah. Ah, so good. So, with all the outrageousness you did have, was there something that you guys wanted to have and you're like, that's a bit much. Let's not put that in at all. There has to be something.
uh so I'll even go the reverse of that is there's a particular scene that we came up with that we didn't want to film. We all talked about that it was way too much and it was so ridiculous. And it's to do with the Australia's horniest man. I don't want to give away too much, but Australia's horniest man meets his demise via the emus, and they there's a scene with him passing away, and it ended up making the movie. So we filmed it, and then we filmed the extra stuff, the stuff that we thought was going to be way too stupid and way too much. And when we when we put the movie together, they edited the movie, and John and Jay Morrissey and stuff. They wanted to keep that scene in the movie, and Screen Australia said no. It's too much. And for some reason, um, John Campbell, one of the directors, just fought for it. And I think it wasn't to do with like, we really need this scene. It makes more sense in the movie. It doesn't make any sense. It's got nothing to do with the rest of the movie. It's not even in the same like vibe as the rest of the movie. It's such a weird standalone scene. But I think he just didn't like being told you can't have that.
Yeah.
And I I like it. I love that the scenes in the movie. It's really full on. It is blurred out. Some of the stuff. So I think that's what got us across the line to keep it. But yeah, it's. Well, I don't know why we're proud of some of the stupidness. It's weird. But I'm just so happy with how I don't know how much we're pushing the envelope in in some of the scenes. I think uh, somebody was talking about it, like, no one. I think it was Goxie said, "Oh, no one else is doing this type of stuff in movies," and
Mm.
I'm like, "Yeah, because no one else are morons. No one that was stupid enough to do this. Like what that's no one's putting lemon on ice cream. They're not groundbreakers, they're idiots. And that's I feel like sometimes with some of the scenes that's what we're doing. Um and yeah, spe- speaking of like raunchy stuff, I suppose Goxie um is one of the characters that he plays. I suppose like a a character that's sort of opposite to mine. Um, and yeah, there's a scene. So we're pretty much enemies from the start, and there's a scene in particular in the show where the major tells us that we have to go into the tent and we have to kiss for warmth,
Oh yes.
and we're we're filming this scene, and Goxie's just like we're kissing, and then Goxie starts like not closing his eyes in a sensual means. I mean like closing his eyes when he's delivering his lines,
Mm.
and they're like, "Oh, you need to keep your eyes open when you deliver that line." And then Goxie's like, "Oh, okay," and then we start kissing again, and then he doesn't, and then he ruins the line if he gets it. Um, and then 25 takes later, like so many, and I'm going. Dude, just I don't want to keep kissing you in a tent all night. Just, dude, please.
I've
And
kissed
then,
you tonight more than I've kissed my wife, mate.
absolutely, it's so stupidly crazy. And the director was like, "Nah, that's not it. Nah, that's not it." And I'm like, "John, you've got it, mate. Like in 25 takes, I promise you, you've got it." And he's like, "We don't. I can't stress to you enough." Um, And then, yeah, and I was getting frustrated because we're just filming it over and over and over, and I'm kissing Goxie, and then I just went, "That's it, we're done. That's enough." And then I stood up, and Goxie like come over, and he just put his hand like just on my shoulder, and he just said, "Hey, dude," and he's trying to calm me down, and he goes, I just if it means anything, you're my first on-screen kiss." And I'm
Aw.
like, it means nothing to me, man. Like, I don't. That did not calm me down. Why would you think that that would calm me down? That's the most ridiculous thing to say. I it's so sweet, but genuinely, that was like the worst thing he could have said to me at the time. Like, it just after he's so funny. He's such a funny dude in real life. And yeah, what what a scene. I love that that made the trailer. Me kissing Goxie. But yeah, there's so much to it into the movie. For the people who haven't watched it, I can't encourage you enough. Go and watch it. Tell me what's your favorite stuff, and make a list of all your favorite, all your worst things.
Oh, definitely. So when it premiered, I believe it was at Monster Fest in Melbourne. Is that where it premiered?
Yeah,
How did
yeah,
it feel sitting in a crowd watching
yeah.
you react to this?
That's insane. It was so insane. I loved every second of that, and to feel the wave of the crowd. It was a sold out show. The people that came and supported it were so amazing. The crowd genuinely went with the movie, so you could almost feel the wave of laughter. There's obviously scenes where there's a little bit of like angst and stuff, and you could feel the audience getting tense and going, "Oh yeah, haha, oh no," and they were almost moving as one, and that was so cool. And then having obviously really good friends, but incredible people. Tommy Little came and watched the movie, and was sitting like a couple of seats down from me, and just constantly kept getting up and coming over and just like knuckling and just going, dude, that is the dumbest thing I've ever seen in my life. And I'm just like, that's the perfect. That's the perfect response.
Yeah.
Um, and yeah, and to win that award was just like just amazing. I think like the Monster Fest award. It's not huge. It's not this hugest thing that anybody could get, but I felt like there was just this simple bit of validation that I just. It was my first time working on something so big, and it was just something that somebody said, "Hey, you guys did a good job," and I was like, "That's all I wanted, I suppose. That's all I wanted to hear, and that's so lovely."
It means a lot, even if someone just one person watches it. You go, you know what, you took your time. You
Yeah,
decided to spend time out of your day and watch that. But to know you had a whole audience of people and they laughed
yeah,
with you, they loved it. It
yeah.
must feel great.
And the special effects at the time of that screening weren't like what they are today. Um, Schuster was telling a crazy story about the guy that they employed to do the CGI. Had a year and to be working on it, maybe a year and a bit. And then 3 months before the Monster Fest, he rang him and said, "Where are we up to with it?" And he just said, "I haven't done anything and I quit." And that's so scary, of a movie that has a lot of CGI in it. And it's not like, Avatar or anything, but it does take a lot of effort and work.
Mhm.
So, yeah, getting a new CGI guy in to start working on these scenes, and he worked tirelessly. Like I think he was going to sleep at like 4 o'clock in the morning,
Oh wow.
up at 10 in the morning, and then was just working on trying to get this movie up to scratch within 3 months so that it could do the Monster Fest. And yeah, and to be up to that standard that it was incredible to have the crowd going bananas. But then yeah, and then he's gone back and worked on it again, and it's the movie that we see today, and that's I think it just yeah it shines. It's so much silly fun. All the CGI that's in it.
Yeah. Well, Dane, thank you so much for being on the show tonight. I really, really, this was so much fun, this one. I will leave you with one more question, though. If
Yep.
there was another historical event that you could pick to make a film about and from Australia, what would you pick?
Oh, I think there's some really funny stories to be told. I think Ned Kelly could be like really fun. I know that there's obviously some really seriousness and stuff to it. But there's one story in particular that somebody's talked about. That there was a tank during World War II, and I think it was a German tank, and it was in no man's land, and it got what they just abandoned it, and a bunch of Australians, just crazy Australians, just went into the to no man's land and like got the tank and brought it back, and yeah, and was wrecking havoc with a tank, and I think that's a really cool, fun Australian-esque story. I
Kind of
need to
like the
know more
Tarzan
details.
Paris kind of thing, but
Yeah,
pink instead.
yeah, absolutely. Um, I think that could be really fun. There's a multiple yarns from Australian history that are iconic and fun and silly. I don't know if there's anything in recent sort of history that I can think of, but yeah, um, I I I think what it's careful of doing too with something like a war movie and taking in war tropes, is the seriousness of war. There's obviously people who go out and they're risking their lives, but it's for their country and it's for these types of things. And I think doing a war movie about the Emu War was perfect because we're not nobody lost their lives in this particular war in real life. Um, and war movies have tropes in it, like you constantly see those. the voiceover stuff and people like dying and getting really heavy and having this music and um yeah, you see it in the Thin Red Line. You see it in like those iconic war movies. They all have these scenes,
Mm,
and then putting those into this movie was so much fun, and wanting to make it like iconically war, but it's not. It's about something silly.
mm,
And I think yeah, if we were going to tell another story, it would be cool to try and do something like that again, and just be taking the piss out of whatever kind of movie tropes that there would be. Um, and then yeah, and using that to tell a story of something ridiculous
mm.
would be cool.
Well, thank you, Dane. I really, really appreciate this. This was so much fun, and I hope you had fun
Yeah,
too.
yeah, absolutely. That's so
Awesome.
cool.
Well, Emu War is available to watch on, well, I watch it through YouTube. And do you know other places? Like, is it on Apple or
Apple TV, Amazon, or you can get the Blu-ray if you're feeling old school, through the Umbrella website.
all the DVDs behind me?
Nice.
I've got so many, it's nuts, seriously. Alrighty, so I'll just say thank you everyone for watching. Like and subscribe, do all those great things. Watch the Emu War because you need to. It's going to be a staple in Australian film. And I'll see you on the next one. Bye, guys.